Man, that's so good.
Mm-hmm.
So, dive a little bit more into really what the company looks like, the investment company for these leaders. Are you looking for talent? Like, help me understand. We do investments, so I think, okay, liquid market investments, not the same.
Yeah.
Help me understand.
Well, and this, so many of these scenarios, and this is all newer. So I'd say in the last several years, looking for things. So these would all be private companies, but I would say there's some redemptive nature to the company of that business leader wanting to make the world a better place, and so this could be I think from a lot of it does tie into the philanthropic side, but I think what I've seen over time is that a lot of American philanthropy is about us and about us getting our name on something and making us feel good. And the philanthropy that I'm drawn toward was more about job creation and the dignity of the individual. Yeah. And when I look back at my own career and what I've seen is people, their fulfillment comes from having a job and having a workplace where they feel like they're adding value, where they're being pushed, where they are making positive changes. And so a lot of that shift has been to say, hey, can we invest in companies, right, that are potentially having much more impact than, some of the nonprofits that I historically have worked with, and nothing against the nonprofits, but I've just come across some great organizations that are allowing people to flourish and thinking about their business with double or triple bottom line of how we're making an impact. And so I think for me it blends the business side of what I'm doing. And with the coaching side, also with opportunities to see really people making a difference and the dignity of that creates.
I love it, and I can see it from a couple different angles. So forgive me if I'm asking questions that are a little off base. So you are working with understanding these companies, and then are you bringing money to the table for them, or are you helping them grow in their governance, or?
Yeah, so most of
both?
These so far, could be both, but would be investing right now. I think is the first
to be able to invest as a shareholder partner in these publicly traded companies.
Those would all be private companies.
Okay.
Yeah, and hopefully there is some value add there that I bring to the table. Some of them I have invested in, which I'm like, I don't add any value because I don't really understand what you're doing.
Okay.
But what you're doing is having such an amazing impact that I just want to engage in the process. So.
Are you using your own dollars? Are you using Impact Foundation dollars? How are you structuring this? Because there's several really neat options in this space that you're in.
Yeah, both and.
Okay.
Both and.
Have you found a benefit to one versus the other?
I haven't, and honestly, I don't have great answers on this because I'm trying to figure it out myself.
Okay.
In my mind, I try to separate, obviously, the tax structure from what God's calling me to do.
Right, we don't do good things because of taxes, right?
Yes. Right. So I've structured it pretty simplistically now. Most of if there's a debt instrument that's going to be repaid, I move that more toward the DAF because I feel like that's going to be replenished and I can then reallocate that capital. Okay. Right now, if it's really if it is equity and I'm not sure how that's going to play out, I've done that personally. I do.
Interesting. Okay.
I have. Kind of, two concepts have, kind of reframed how I do investing along these lines. Yeah. One is, and I know this to be true, but the truth that all capital is impact capital took me a while to wrap my head around. But anywhere that I'm invested or spending my money, and that could be on myself or my family or other people, is having an impact. And so is every dollar that's allocated wherever those resources God has entrusted me with, is that having positive impact? Yeah. And so I do have different buckets right now of personal money, and DAF, but I also have this idea that ultimately it's a single pocket because it's owned by the same person, and that's not me. And so, how that plays out. Still trying to put some structure around that because I like structure and I like a plan and I like measurements.
Some formulas are helpful.
And
right?
sometimes those measurements, are not playing out. So I'm still on that journey a little bit.
Who helps you with that? Who's your sounding board for that?
I think just other people that are on the journey.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, other people that have invested in these companies. There's several groups that I've engaged with over the last several years. Ambassadors Impact Network is an angel network in Dallas.
Okay.
That's a lot of opportunities, which
That's
has been helpful
helpful.
because it's a group that you can have collective wisdom and collective insight around versus, I tell people, I think usually when people venture into this idea and concept, they sign the first deal that they were approached in the church parking lot, and that usually doesn't end up well. Because people get really excited.
That concept, 'cause I think that doesn't get talked about enough. So we'll come back around.
And so I tell people, careful of the church parking lot deal. But the Christian Economic Forum is a global group that I'm involved in, really solving the world's largest problems. I've been involved in kind of some of the faith-driven investor movements, and that's been helpful. As I said, Ambassadors Impact Network has been helpful.
It's probably the most helpful. Do you think? You said it twice,
Well,
so I'm wondering.
I have. Well, and the reason I say that, it's the vetting there that's been helpful. So they have
that makes sense.
more than a handful of experts with private equity expertise in different segments, and so the ability to really, I don't have a team of people doing due diligence. I'll send it to people just to get insight, but really saying, hey, that person really wants to engage with this company well, and they've got expertise in agriculture or whatever space that I really don't have expertise in. That's been probably most helpful because it's the deepest dive into validating. And I will say it's a validation of the financial opportunity, but also the spiritual opportunity and impact as well. So they actually rate the potential financial impact as well as spiritual impact, and so that's been helpful.
That's so good. And we said it kind of tongue in cheek, but I do think it's worth circling back around to the idea of the deal in the church parking lot. The idea being, well, you're a believer, you're doing something, you should here's money to invest. Or, of course, I'm going to do business with a believer. And then, the reason that we have a lot of disappointment is really just missed expectations, right? We're all sinners.
Yeah.
We're all fallen. We can love the Lord with all our heart, soul, and mind, and maybe not have the best business deal.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have been hurt in a lot of ways by just thinking, if it's attached to the church or if it's underwritten by the church or if it's by a fellow believer, then it's going to be a home run. And sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't.
Yeah.
That's how I heard that comment. Or I just touched my microphone. That's how I heard that comment. Is that kind of what you meant, or did I miss anything?
No, that's absolutely true. And I'll echo 2 points of that. One, I think we want it to be true because we think we're doing something good, and so God will overlook a bad business plan because He wants it to succeed. And I'm not sure that's the case.
For me too, sometimes.
But the other side is, I think we see people doing creative and innovative things, but we often sell it short in the sustainability or opportunity that those dollars can have.
Yeah.
So, and I say this because it happens to me, right? You do the church parking lot deal and that doesn't work out, and then you're like, oh, okay. Well, the next stop, honestly, is the coffee shop, because everybody has the Christian coffee shop idea that's going to engage culture in a way. Not that some of those aren't great, but at the end of the day, I don't know that we're changing the world with another coffee shop. But just the notion that there are big problems that I think God has called us to engage in and solve, and there's companies with great expertise that are tackling some of these problems in very innovative and creative ways. So, when you hear, a faith-driven leader, don't automatically assume the coffee shop or the leather goods company. And again, nothing wrong with these entities, whether it's here or overseas. But just know that at a certain level, there are very capable, business leaders that are doing some great things.
That's so good. And those great things can stand the test of due diligence. I
Right.
think that's a really good message.
Yeah.
Ask questions, understand, look under the hood, make an
Right.
informed decision.
Yeah.
great companies can stand the test of due diligence.
Right,
So,
right. Yeah, you don't
think-
have to you don't have to give up on the financial side.
Yeah.
And at some point, maybe God is telling you to take a lower return on a particular investment, and that's fine. But understand why that's the case. If you are in a market with a market-based item, I don't think you should have a concessionary return. If you're trying to solve a big problem and nobody's really doing it profitably, okay, maybe a concessionary return is applicable in that scenario. So I think it is case by case.
Do you find yourself in those either boards or in those leadership conversations pushing organizations to forego a concessionary return or to really push the market? Is that something that do you feel like that happens already, or are you pushing that?
I think it does. Again, with these organizations, just because some of the conversations have been happening, I think it's a constant conversation, right? I mean, the company has to be profitable, right? It's got to be sustainable. It has employees, and so at the same time, I went to business school, in the 90s, and maximizing profits was all that there was, right? It was a single bottom line, and this is it, and this is how you win, and that's how you keep score. I think in a lot of these scenarios, one, it's not really how we keep score from a faith perspective, but two, what I often find of where people aren't completely understanding the scenario is an issue of timing. I don't know that. It's probably one of the most, not talked about subject is really timing, and this idea of a finite time in which I'm responsible for this versus infinite. And I think it's Simon Sinek that talks about the finite and infinite. And I think from a faith perspective, we really see, it's generations and generations. And so I think from a business perspective, if you can get a board aligned around what is the appropriate timeline to achieve what particular goals, it's helpful, to understand that. Because I usually find that people aren't aligned around that.
Yeah.
And then on the public side, you have, it's just about the next quarterly earnings, and the quarter after that doesn't really matter. And so that it gets more challenging, right? The larger the company, and the more people are involved, even on a public side. But getting alignment around timeline and expectations is important.
So good. Well, thank